Hey, agents, have you been stumbling through and just trying to figure out if you're moving in the right direction? We're going to chat just about that. Let's go.
Hey, champs, and welcome back to another show episode of International Championship Workshop. Today, I'm joined by my man Jason out in Indiana, and we're also joined by someone super interesting who I met like 5 minutes ago, but that's all I needed. Uh, we got Jim Perry, also out of Indiana. Are you guys in the same town, or are you guys far from each other, like distance wise?
We're about 20, 30 minutes away from each other. So
Okay,
easy.
okay, that's cool. And yeah, I have been speaking with Jim, and this is a really exciting episode because Jason spoke about stumbling through it, which has been my life motto for the past, I was gonna say 6 years, but it's more like nine, almost 10. Which maybe isn't a good thing, but it's worked out, and it's something that we all need to learn to do at some point because it's never a straight road, especially when it comes to real estate. And I was just talking with Jim at the moment, and he started super young, getting into real estate, and he built out his own brokerage to 200 agents, 200 plus agents, eventually sold it off, and has stumbled through a lot of things in life. But it all worked out and it all came full circle. And I thought this is really, really cool experiences to share with you guys. And yeah, Jim, how's it going?
Happy to be here, man. Happy hanging out. It's going well.
Cool. That's it. Now we're just hanging out, and we're gonna go through some questions, and we're gonna relive some of our experiences, which will help other people like you that are watching this grow and stumble through your current market, your current problems, whatever it may be. So, Jason, how are
Hey,
you finding it? Yeah, hi. How are you finding the current market? I'm talking about, I'm not talking about like the housing market in particular, like prices and inventory and all the rest of it, but how are you finding the current market for agents and other agents that maybe want to go independent, agents that are thinking of just getting started in real estate? How are you seeing things recently? Is it a difficult time to get into it? Is it the best time to get into it? And what would your advice be to someone that's just getting started?
man, it all is that long vision. Where do you want to go over the next 3, 5, 10 years? How are you going to build that bridge in essence as well? So it really boils down. You got to do some self-discovery, right? Let's
Yeah.
figure out what's that path. What is the angle that you want to do, and how do you help people along the way? Between the three of us, I think we all have a heavy heart of helping others, and it's a true testament. And I was saying, as we were just chatting as well, just has how much I adore you guys, because I think both of you are on high levels of giving back to everyone that you touch, and that's amazing. So talking about how that's looking, it really boils down to the person. Jim, having you here, how do you look at things like that to say if people are looking at whether it's changing directions of brokerage or changing the way maybe they're living their own personal life? How do you add to that?
Yeah, I think for when you look at agents as a whole, they've got different struggles. Ian talked about like new to the industry agents. They're looking for something different than an agent who's maybe plateaued at 5 million. Maybe that 5 million agent is the one that is looking for more growth. It's interesting because when they hit that range, they start looking for growth in change and changing a brokerage. And while that can help if you get plugged in with the right people who give you the right plan and get you to take action, that's not the end all be all. It's almost like agents are one of my favorite quotes. They're running east looking for a sunset. So it's like they've
Right.
identified what they want, but they haven't looked into it enough to know that they're going towards it. They're just, this looks like a direction to go. So I'm going to change my brokerage and that's going to take care of my growth issue. So, and we're seeing a lot of that right now. At least I feel like we are, Jason, in our market, a lot of shifting of agents. And the irony is most of them don't grow when they change. They're literally in the exact same place because they changed everything but something within themselves. So their life essentially stayed the same. And that agent is very easy to recruit, very difficult to help grow. So if you are someone who can help that agent grow, it will recruit them in and of itself because you are what they're looking for. They're really looking for growth. They just don't know what it looks like.
Yeah.
New agents are new agents, man. They're always like ignorance is bliss. They're excited. They come in ready to roll, and then they hit the old 85% failure rate that we deal with in our industry. And a lot of them just lose their motivation over time. So for them, I think the key is they lose their motivation because their expectations are unrealistic.
100%.
Yeah, so if you're expecting to make, I'm just going to talk in terms of Indiana. If you're expecting to make $150,000 in your first year selling houses, you're destined to be disappointed. You're just destined for that. And if you're disappointed, that's going to lead to an emotion that makes you want to maybe give up or quit or do less of the things that had you going the right direction. And that's where I think a lot of these new agents are making mistakes. They're actually going the right direction. What they're mistaking is the pace at which they're heading that way at. And so because they're only going this fast the right direction, they think they're not doing it right. So they stop their activities and they start to backslide this direction. So for me, talking with new agents, Ian, Jason, my biggest thing is getting them to accept their natural progression, the rate at which they're going to progress, and understanding what contributes to that. And then what are the things we can do to accelerate that rate at which you progress? And if we can get these newer agents to kind of understand that, a lot of them will quit before they start if they understand how long it's going to take them to be successful. But if we can get them to understand that, they're going to stay in the game longer and they're going to do the activities that don't produce the immediate gratification. They're going to do them long enough to where it all starts to come their way. So that was a long answer that maybe did not even answer your question, but it just kind of hit my brain.
Yeah. No, and it's really interesting that you talk. I really identified with something that you mentioned there, which was, we don't, we expect so much more within such a short time when we first get started. And that's not how it goes. What is it Tony Robbins says? You overestimate what you can do in a year, but you underestimate what you can do in
a lifetime.
Something like that. Did I get it mixed? No, that's right. Yeah. So, and when I first started, and it wasn't so much for the sales side of it because I had sold houses before, I had that experience and whatever. It was more the agent growth side of things for me. I expected way much more to happen sooner when I first got started, especially in EXP specifically. And then you mentioned where you're disappointed because you didn't meet your expectations because it's not what you expected, and then you kind of like roll backwards a little bit. And that's exactly what happened to me. For me, there's never an in between. You're either moving forward or you're either falling backwards. There's no like that middle bit is just death. There's nothing there. So that's really interesting because now I look at myself and I have 20 agents in 5 countries, which is something that is still hard to believe sometimes. And I wanted to ask you, because this is really, it intrigues me, is so for you that grew your brokerage, you grew your own thing to 200 plus agents. I always tell mine that 0 to 1 is like the hardest step. That's like the worst part. 1 to 10 is a little bit easier. It just requires, once you get that experience of 0 to 1, you can implement that, get from 1 to 10. For you, what was it that made you go from just an independent agent selling a bunch of homes? What did you said you got 300,000 a year just as an independent agent?
That was my 3rd year. So just, I come from humble beginnings. So I had set a goal my 3rd year in real estate. Man, I was talking to my wife. It was crazy. I was just like, Terry, we're going to make $300,000 this year. I was like, that's crazy. And it was like January when I told her this, but you can see your pipeline and project out.
Yeah.
And so I was counting those dollars, which we're not supposed to do. But it just blew my mind. And that became the goal that year. And we hit that goal by beginning of November. And Ian, sound like you're a Tony Robbins fan, right?
Yes.
So he's got a quote that says, "Success without fulfillment is the ultimate failure." Have you heard that?
Yeah.
And so when I got there, and I think it was because the goal was just monetary, which
Yeah.
it matters. Everybody should experience some good income. But when I got there, I was kind of like, man, is this it? Like, I have a new boat, I have a new house, a new truck, all these things, and they all wear off. So I wanted to make a difference. I was like, man, if I could bring this to other people, um,
There it is.
that was my ultimate goal that said, all right, I'm leaving this and I'm going to show other people how to create this type of income for their family. So yeah, it was more about others, but I'm not gonna lie, I saw the opportunity. Like, if you collect some people, you're gonna make some money. Like,
Of
that's
course.
the way that works. If you're influential and you get enough people following you, I mean, you're gonna fight Mike Tyson and make 40 million in one night. So it's
Yeah.
just how that works. And not saying I was like this martyr who did it all for the people, but that was a driving force. And then I also saw, wait, this is really good for me too. If I hit that number, this is going to be really good. So that
Mm.
was kind of my tipping point of what sent me that direction. Just trying to contribution. You brought that up before this call. It was the idea of contributing, and I'm going to bring up Tony Robbins again because you've dropped a couple quotes. I dropped one, and when you said contribution, I thought, okay, he's playing off of those 6 things that Tony will talk about. Those last two, one is contributing beyond yourself, and you probably know the other one. But I was just kind of looking at that. I'm like, that was important. So in November that year, when I felt a little off, I started looking at everything, reading. I'm like, man, I shouldn't feel like this. I just made 300 grand. I've never made more than 30 in a year. I should feel amazing. And I didn't. And so that's what I landed on, was that contribution. So it really stood out to me. Believe it or not, when you said that, I was like, yeah, this is my guy. Same scenario.
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah.
And,
And then you got, sorry, go ahead.
no, go ahead, Jim.
Well, I was going to finish a thought on, we talked about newer agents, and it is a lot about expectation and just getting past yourself, accepting who you are. Am I a slow grower? Am I a fast grower? And accepting that so that you know what you need to do and you're not disappointed on the way there to where you give up. That's the new agent. You have your agent who's at 5 to 10 million, or any agent that's hit a plateau for that matter.
Yeah.
They're looking for growth. In my experience, where those guys struggle is they try to follow a different model than what they follow to get to where they currently are. So, and I'm currently doing it myself. I just got out of this rut where, I left my current brokerage and we're building something. And I'm like, all right, it's got to be the perfect blueprint. And we're working on the blueprint for so long, the blueprint, like playing this whole thing out. And like, with all this knowledge I have now, I can forecast that if this happens, then this will happen. So we're spending all this time planning. When you get a team leader that's going to be a team leader for the first time, they got to have it all set up. They're like looking at this, they're looking at that. The only thing they're not doing is what we open this call with, is taking a few stumbles forward. They're not putting one foot in front of the other. And so when I get an agent in that production range that they're like, I'm stuck. I'm like, where are you stuck at? And they're like, I'm coming up with the plan and I'm stuck. Well, you can only see so far out. And that's the problem, is they arrive at a point and they keep trying projecting out what's next instead of walking to that door and seeing what's there and then formulating a new plan, which is how they got to their original level of success. They knew nothing. So Ian, you've got some agents under you. Jason's got some agents. You guys have accumulated a lot of success in your life. If I asked you both, like, pull out your original blueprint, the roadmap for when you all started this, and I want to see how it stacks up to where you've arrived now. Dude, there's no way I'm going to look at that blueprint, if there even is one, and go, man, you nailed it. Like, literally, you executed the plan flawlessly. Like, your lives and the way that you got there, you could have spent 1,000,000 hours on a blueprint and your road there would have looked nothing like the blueprint. And so that now you have these agents who want to take this next step and really kind of think about it. Most people who come in our industry, they didn't come from like $500,000 a year salaries and things like that. This is like their shot, right? Most of them have not, similar to myself, tasted a tremendous amount of success or financial stability. So they were just kind of winging it on their way there. And again, not to keep going Tony Robbins, but he'll say massive action is the cure all. They just took action and they figured it out along the way. They wrote their blueprint on the way to the destination. And so that's where these agents at 5, 10, 15, 20, 30 million who are stuck, they're trying to do one thing differently. Instead of walking forward and just planning a little, arriving there, planning again, they're staying right here and they're like, all right, I'm going to go here. Then I'm going to go here. Then I need to do this if I want to go here. And all they're doing is they're turning over a field in their head. They're not getting anything done. So getting them to just go and move forward, that's the key, honestly, for all of them, and getting to do it for a sustained period of time. Sorry, man. Jason should have told you I was going to spew out a bunch of crap.
Well, I am loving this crap. Don't you worry about that.
Yeah. No, well, Jim, and I was happy that you brought it back to those agents because just like you said, a lot of that is also self-reflection, right? Hey, who am I? How do I connect with people? How do I become better? And then one of those books I always talk about, Ian, is Who Not How. Then you surround yourself with the right who's. So now you have an internal assessment to say, hey, this is how I could perform and this is how I need to be better in this business. And you're diagnosing, hey, I hit this plateau. Like Jim was saying, I hit a plateau. Now, how do I get over that plateau, stumble through it, and get to a higher level? That's self-reflecting, right, guys? So that's where we want to help them get to those next levels. Hey, guy, hey, look at yourself. And as we talk about Tony Robbins, he does a disc assessment test. If you've never taken one of those, we'll drop the link below. But do that. It's free. It lets you know about who you are. And then that can get you started in that right direction and be able to build off of that. And then reach out to any of us and we'll help you stumble along. We'll hold your hand and get you moving on.
Yeah, that's it. And one thing I want to touch on also is the people are kind of trying to project too far, and I listened to one podcast, and I shouldn't be talking about other podcasts on ours, but there's only one that I've ever listened to, and it's Real AF by Andy Frisella. I don't know if you know it. Check it out. And he talks about information zombies, and these are the people that go to all the events, all the conferences, read all the books, listen to all the podcasts, plan out their website, plan out their logo, the colors for the branding and everything else, and how to get to this point and beyond, and blah blah blah. And they're there for so long they do nothing the whole time. And that's exactly, they stumble through it is, we should change it. It's stumble through it, but stumble through it every quarter or like every 6 months or something. It's not something that you can just. And it's really interesting that you brought up the, hold up your blueprint for when you were first getting started and compare to where you are now. Like, for example, I like the visualization aspect of a lot of things. Sorry, I got to plug in my computer here. It's going to turn off. And I try to visualize where I'm going because that's where I'm heading to. That's where I'm stumbling towards is a brighter and a better future for me and my family and everyone else involved. And when I think back to how the visualization was in the beginning, that fell off long ago, and I didn't even realize the whole thing changes as you develop and evolve along the way and as you grow. And I really like, Jim, that you brought that up, and it kind of made me think on it again. And one thing that I always try to get across to my team is, if we're going to sit down and go through like a visualization process or talk about a certain book or your vision board or your business planning and whatever else, redo it consistently. It's not something that you can do once and then sit down and just do it for the next 5 years. Multiple times a year I do it. And there's certain books that I like to read multiple times a year because every time you read it, you're at a different stage in life and it has a different meaning to you. It's the same as, all these different quotes it's depending on where you are, it's going to be something completely different. It's going to have a different perspective on how you see things. No, I love it. And I think that agents coming into the industry or agents looking for a new change, need to keep that in mind. Don't focus on what's 10 years in front of you. I mean, have it in mind. That's a great goal to aim towards, but reevaluate where you are and what you're doing God, I would do it every month, even in the beginning, just to see where you are, what's going on, and if you're going in the right direction.
Yeah, you got to remotivate yourself. I'm going to start a training series in 2025, and it's just called Re-Kickstart. And the reason I'm doing that is because I've never met anyone other than maybe, and I haven't met him, but like a David Goggins type guy. That guy got a kickstart, never stopped.
Yeah.
But
started me, yeah.
yeah, but most people, when we get our kickstart, we all have like an expiration on when that's going to wear off. Some it's sooner, some go for years. Me, I can go for a few weeks, and then I got to like bring it back and go, hey, remind yourself why you're doing this, man. It's easy to forget. And then you wake up 3 months down the road and you're like, man, I've like binged all these shows and sold no houses, and it seems like time just flew by. Yeah, here goes 4 months. I lost a quarter.
Yeah.
And agents do all the time. You guys will hear them like come back to you and they're like, I got to get back to it because they left it.
Yeah.
And if you don't have like a re-kickstart or like what you do, Ian, like you probably have a structured way to remind yourself monthly or whatever it is through visualization rituals. If you don't have that, it wears off and you have not set up something in place to re-energize yourself. So what will happen is your reminder will be your bank account.
Yeah.
Because sooner or later that rubber meets the road and you're like, hey, my bank account says I lost my motivation now. Like now I have to go talk to Jason and Ian and saying, hey, I'm ready. I got to get back to it.
Right.
That's typically the way it works unless you put something in place.
Yeah.
And you have to have those pieces in place. And if you don't know how to get those pieces in place, then again, that's where you reach out to any of us, and we want to help you figure that stuff out. It's crucial. Get those early stages. Now, Jim, let me ask you this: being an owner, a team leader, all that stuff. What if there's a team leader that's kind of lost their way in an essence, and regrouping and trying to figure out and doing some self-reflection, but at the same time needing to lead that team? What advice would you give them to stumble through it?
Oh man, that's a good one. I don't have a super popular opinion on this, but I think most team leads are team leads because somebody told them that was the next step.
That's a good point.
Sometimes their production is more influential than their personality.
Mm-hmm.
And so they acquire some people through social proof. People see their success and think if I tag on, and all that team leader is really looking at is like, heck yeah, this is an extra 5, 10,000, whatever it ends up being in their pocket. I think that team leader's in a more difficult spot because they did not intentionally choose to lead people. They didn't intentionally choose to build something. Opportunity kind of found them and somebody said, this is your next step. That's most team leaders in real estate. And they're like, okay, I'll start a team. That's why most teams are unprofitable. That's why the team leader is running around ragged and they complain about their team members behind all their team members' backs because it's not worth it to them. And they weren't intentional from the front. So a lot of team leaders need to start back at the beginning. Talk to some team leaders, guys. Ask them this. You can ask them what they charge. Bam. They're going to hit you with that split right away. Then ask them what their value is. And you're going to see the greatest smile and it's me, like one of those deals. And it's like, if value is just friendship and they want to pay thousands for something that they can get for free, fine. But most of them didn't build it. Like you think about like how most businesses are in this world in anything. You're selling a product. If I'm going to sell a product, I don't price the product until I'm finished with the product. Like, or at least until I know what the product is, what that concept is. I can go, I'm going to sell this. It's worth this. Most agents are, I'm going to charge this. and they don't know what they're going to do on the other end here. And the only thing they think is just being them is enough.
Mm.
And they find out it's not. You got to have systems, you got to have a plan, and you got to have a passion for helping other people. If that's not there, that passion for helping others, forget about it. The money won't be enough to keep you going. So for team leaders that need to re-energize themselves, a lot of them need to stop for a second and go, wait, how did I get here, first of all? Like, how did I arrive here? Did I choose this? Or was this just kind of the direction I was pigeonholed towards and I arrived, which is fine? But let's stop and look at the opportunity you have to impact people's lives, their children, their children's children, how far that can go on. And if that remotivates them, then that'll be enough motivation for them to put together that value for the agents. Does that make sense? And for
100%.
me,
That
I
makes
put
total
together the value for the people, not so that I can have my money.
It makes total sense, and it almost is parallel to how we were talking about those new agents, where they're reevaluating themselves and looking and having the right people. If they got into a team leadership position and they were thrown out there and said, "Here, you've done that great production and you had a nice smile. Here, you go lead everybody." But that team leader had nobody around them, so they couldn't find a passion, they couldn't find help, answers, collaboration. So that's a huge piece, and I think you nailed it on the head. Ian, what do you think?
I think that's a really interesting reflection on a lot of people that are hearing this. I think team leaders, obviously, especially, is to kind of make them
It's a hard
stop and
truth.
stop and think like, oh, like wait, shit, like how did I get here? Like, is it because this is the way that it's supposed to go? Like you're an independent agent. Production is awesome. What's the next step? Team lead. Like that's just the normal path for things to do. Um, if you're not cut out for it, if it's not your passion, if it's not your intention, but you do it anyway because you were told to, or because that's the normal thing to do, or because that's what you see externally, that's what people do, then you're not going to enjoy it. Stop, reevaluate. Is it worth it? I don't know. Is it really? And then go back to your blueprint and see if it fits in. Is that actually what's happening? Is this what you wanted? You know, the headaches of running the team and trying to help everybody, holding people's hands if they're newer to the industry or whatever. Is that actually what you were looking for when you got into this? And
Most
Love
people,
it.
it was not what they were looking for. It is just where they arrived. We're all suckers for opportunity, right? We're all suckers
yeah,
for growth. If somebody says, man, you've made it, the next step is this. Very few people say, I'm good.
right,
They're like,
Right.
yeah, great.
True.
I dominated this. Let's go.
yeah,
And so I have an interesting perspective on how people have achieved success in our world. A lot of team leaders, they had big spheres. They're influential. Doesn't mean they're smart business people. I'm not saying that they're not. But it doesn't mean also that every influential, likable person is going to have a business mind. And so, man, we see these people who are like the king of their town, the queen, the mayor, the whatever you want to call it. And really, all they have to do is announce on social that they're in the game, be consistent with a little bit of that announcement, and
yeah,
watch their business flourish. At my last company, they'd have the rookies of the year come up and explain. There's like 5 of them. They do it at every company. They're like, tell everyone how you did it. I've
right,
never heard a response that resembled anything, any type of strategy, any type of anything. They're all so different. Some of them are just I'm just me. And I'm like, that's spot on. That is how you did it.
right,
They don't attribute it to that. They're like, you got to work hard. You got to do this. You got to do this. I'm like, man, you did that work over the past 20 years, shaking hands, kissing babies. Just your personality is attractive. So as soon as you announced you're open for business, the customers that you've been building the past 20 years start flowing in.
mm,
And so then they get this success and they attribute it to what they did the day they got their license and all the hard work and the countless hours and the this, that, and the other. And honestly, it's not true because I've seen both sides of it. They didn't work any harder by and large. and I'm going to hurt some feelings of these successful people. But by and large, they didn't work much harder than the person who failed. They really didn't. They gave up on open houses just the same. Once they got their business to a place of acceptance, I mean, think about that. They've accepted their standard, either begrudgingly or like happy, like, yes, this is a lot of money. Once they accept that standard for the amount of money, they stop doing those activities, don't they?
Yeah.
Same thing with an agent who's not maybe necessarily that likable and doesn't have the influence. They'll do the same amount of activities up to the same period of time. They experience tremendously less success. And the difference between the two, we paint this picture of one person outworked the other.
Mm.
That's not true. And that makes it really difficult when you're telling the person who did just as much work, who didn't experience the success, you were telling two people the same strategy to succeed, and it's not going to work. It's like, well, Tammy's out here doing this. I'm like, Tammy just knows everyone. You can't manufacture that in 6 months. It took her 20 years.
Right.
So I think just really looking at things and getting off our diva stage as agents, like we're divas, guys. Like when we achieve something, like, man, we're gonna let the world know it. Like
Yeah.
this is my yeah, this is my collage of sales, the whole deal. And a lot of it, if we're being honest, fell in our lap because of a good person we were years ago in the past. And these people circled back. We're not outworking some of the people who aren't successful. So I really think for growth moving forward, no one's really tapped into the fact of just being honest with an agent and they say, man, why does Tony have 7 million in production and I only have 2? Tony has a better personality than you. Seriously. Like,
Yeah.
if I had to swap out these 2 agents and I was like, hey, I'm going to take the successful person's personality or work ethic and give it to this agent who's struggling, and you get to pick. And if they're successful, you guys win $50 million. If they're unsuccessful, you want their personality and their connections or their work ethic, and you got 2 years to make them successful. I'm taking their personality and their influence all day long because that's how most agents got where they are. And that's why EXP has which is a phenomenal model, even though I'm not there. That's why they've realized and came up with the model they have, that influence is what moves the needle. Influence is what moves the needle. The most influential agents pick up more agents, and the most influential agents also have the ability to pick up more buyers and sellers, just being them on a consistent basis. So, man,
Right.
did you guys lose any of that in there? That was a bunch of maybe even nonsense, just ideas in my head.
Jim, where have you been, and are you free next week again? Jeez.
I love life is short, guys, and for us to spend a piece of it here together talking about success and helping people, I'm all in any chance I get on stuff like this. It's really cool being able to collaborate with somebody in Spain.
I know, right? That's what we say every week. Like, geez, we're like on other ends of the world, and here we are every week, just like friends. Like it was a normal thing, which it is now. I mean,
Yeah.
that's the habit we get into.
So I'm going to give your team leaders an idea on growth.
All right, and then we're gonna wrap it up after that, gentlemen.
Do your thing, man. Here's kind of one thing I would look at growth. If you are working with team members, you are dealing with personality and influence differences as the main factor of why some are quickly successful. Let's say quick success. You can work your way to the finish line. If you're dealing with them, for the agents who it's going to take a longer time to be successful, the key in that period of time is to get them not to slow on their activities, but to get them to increase their activities. Disappointment will have them do the opposite. Disappointment leads to decreasing the activities that have disappointed you. So what you do is you change the goal. The result that you're after, you change. So if I want someone to do open houses all year long, because I know eventually they'll figure it out and get a bunch of business, if they think the goal of the open house is to pick up clients, and I have one of these people who struggle with influence and they need some experience dealing with people, they'll quit before they ever even master it. Have you guys seen that?
Mhm.
They'll,
Oh,
they'll,
yeah.
they'll fall off and quit. So what I do for my agents is I change the goal so that no matter what, when they have an open house, they're going to relate it to success, not a failure. So their goal is to utilize the open house as a vehicle to promote themselves on social media. That's it. I tell them you are, and everyone's doing that anyways, but it's that simple nuance of saying, yeah, we're doing that, but instead of making that the secondary thing we do, that's primary. Number one reason that we're doing this open house is so that we can build our brand with our sphere of influence. That is the goal. So if you do an open house, that's why you're doing it. Now, if you get a client, that's the bonus. That's huge. Obviously, we want that. We're going to work our butt off to get that, and those will come
Right.
in. But really, we're only using prospecting activities to build our brand within our sphere. If we get the strangers as clients, great. But man, we really want to do business with our friends and family. So that's what we're doing with the open houses. And then same thing with planning. I'm doing something similar. So we are mapping out social media posts that are also tied into the activity. So your goal is not to necessarily do these activities. Your goal is to make these posts. If you make these posts, you will be successful. And one of these posts happens to be a couple times a month. It's your open house post. Well, you can't make the post if you don't do the open house. So
Right.
the whole thing is going to be geared towards getting your message out, and the results from the activities, that's just a byproduct. Does that make sense? So I think if you can, as a team leader, switch that for your people a little bit, they won't leave that open house disappointed. And if they do, you can kind of say, what are you disappointed about? It worked.
Yeah.
You got to get your message out. Someone's going to use you in a year or whatever because you made that post. So if I'm a team leader, I'm going to switch the expectation of the failed activity so that they continue to do that activity, which will eventually lead to success.
That's it.
Totally agree. I love how you put that. And just to add to that, as an agent, you need to be persistent and consistent with all that.
Oh my
You
God.
can't say, "Oh, I did one open house and it didn't work for me," and go down that negative alley. Stay persistent, move forward with it, stumble through those things, and be able to reach for the higher ground at the long end.
That's it. Jim, I want to say thank you. I want to say thank you for your time, for your knowledge, and for your nuggets of information throughout this call. God, it's got me thinking. I'm gonna sit and meditate for a while after this one. No, it was really, I really, really enjoyed that. Super value packed. And guess what? We stumbled through it. This was not planned, and it worked, and it happened. So that's the message.
Absolutely.
That's the message.
One
Jason,
take,
any
too.
final words?
Hey, Jim, thank you very much for your time, your knowledge, everything you brought to the International Champions Workshop today. Truly a blessing, my man. So happy to have you on here. And yeah, we look forward to having you on many more.
Yep. Well, if you're watching too, guys, I am not with EXP. I've only known Ian for now maybe an hour. I've known Jason for even 5 years now. So if you're considering, I'll say it for them. These are guys that care about people. You can reach out to them. They'll answer your questions, get you plugged in. Not why they're doing the podcast, but there's probably somebody interested, guys. So they need to know that if they need to, you guys would be happy to help them.
We'll be here next week. We look forward to seeing you. And again, stumble through it, make your way forward, not backward. And we're here for whatever you need. Take care.